Welcome back, everybody. I'm Tommy McCarthy, and this is Let's Talk Cyber. Yes, there's two fossils in front of you today. My good friend Iain Johnston from BlackWired and my good self. We're going to talk today a little bit about adaptive shields and the role that AI has around threat defense. But before we do, I'd like to welcome Iain to Let's Talk Cyber. Iain, great to see you, buddy.
Good morning, Tommy. Thank you very much for having us on.
Great stuff, Iain. Listen, before we get into this subject, which is fascinating to say the least, especially the things that you guys are doing around threat defense, tell us a little bit about yourself, Iain. Where are you from? How have you got into this space now with BlackWired?
It's quite a long journey. If I go back, I started life as an army officer in the Royal Scots. But the last 25 years since I left the military, I've been in technology. I've gone through the telcos, oil and gas, and I've been in broadcast. But sort of midway through that journey, I started to get involved in elements of cybersecurity, so payment security, particularly around PCI compliance. I then joined a startup in that space, which took me around to 2020, then started working more deeply with our founder, Jeremy Smeedy, right up to date-ish in the foundation of and formation of BlackWired in 2022. The odd thing is that I think BlackWired has rejuvenated that passion that I had in the military days. It's a very special environment, but right now we're in a space where we really feel we're making a difference. You know, so many are getting crushed by cyber attacks, and we're making a difference in that space. So it's giving me that same sort of passion for the first time.
It's good to always get that passion rejuvenated, Iain, because it doesn't get any easier, that's for sure, especially for us old souls. Thanks very much for that introduction, Iain, and a little bit about yourself. Why don't you tell us more about what BlackWired do? Who are BlackWired and what do they actually do?
Absolutely. Well, the heritage of BlackWired goes back 10 years. Our founder, Jeremy Smeedy, who's from the US military circles, set about building an intelligence apparatus, algorithms that would represent the tradecraft of his heritage as a military-grade analyst. And so this machine has been building and learning over the last 10 years. But in 2022, he decided to form BlackWired and pivot that capability into the commercial sector. Fundamentally, we're an innovation company, but right now there's a heavy specialism in threat intelligence, but we're not constrained only by that.
Right, I see. And so that's quite interesting, actually, to understand a little bit more about where BlackWired evolved from, because it really takes us on to the specialist areas that you guys focus in. But before we get into that, you've got a problem statement, Iain, so you've been telling me. Cybersecurity today, despite investment, isn't working. What is that problem statement? Explain to me what you mean.
I think the problem statement, the context for where we are right now, is that everything's very reactive. Detect and respond is the buzzword across many cyber organizations. And for us, that's too late. And I think that in the threat intelligence space, the organizations fall into fundamentally two categories. There's the aggregators that build dashboards that help organizations understand their threat intelligence picture. But fundamentally, if you look under the hood, it's OSINT intelligence. So that's freely available if you know what you're doing. The second area is the ecosystem sharing. Now, this is used by some of the really major vendors in this space. And these are vendors that we will work with to integrate what we're doing, and we partner with them today. However, fundamentally, again, if you're sharing, that is, a client within your environment has to get hit before you can share it across the environment and others can learn. So again, it's very late in the day. It's they say in the Vietnam space, it's right of bang. We want to get our clients into the proactive space, left of bang, delivering threat intelligence that is predictive of what's coming next.
Okay, yeah, good. Iain, that's really interesting. And you're absolutely right. Most capabilities when it comes to technology are reactive as opposed to proactive. So it's interesting to hear that what you guys are looking to do is get ahead of the threat before it actually happens. Really interesting in that, Iain. So what is the difference between the BlackWired approach? What makes you guys different from everybody else?
Well, the essence of what BlackWired do is, first and foremost, we focus on the adversary. We are watching what they are doing. We are listening to the chatter in the dark web. And fundamentally, the anatomy of attack is made up of, in simplified terms, 4 key elements. So there's the malware, which is the weapon set. We look at along URL where they hide bad within good, where they're located, bad IP, what assets they're building around attack, domain information as an example there. You bring those together, you get a picture of what the adversary is planning. And effectively we index that. It's like having a flight date recorder of, what it's having. And we use that intelligence to protect an organization. One client has said is we have effectively indexed the dark web, which is designed to obscure what they're doing. Our bad actors are actually quite brazen. We are recording that, we're bringing it back, and what we feed into our client's environment is that intelligence that is low detection, predictive of what's coming next, rather than after the fact. Which I think the threat intelligence falls into today.
Iain, obviously you're absolutely right. It's all about that threat intelligence sharing, keeping your clients aware of what's actually out there and what's going on. Really interesting to see. Now, I remember last year, Iain, we attended an event last year in the Middle East, which we're going to do again very shortly. And you just recently then launched Third Watch last year. How has it been received in the market, Iain, and how has the threat intelligence evolved around Third Watch?
So, Third Watch has really changed the dialogue with clients because it's much more visual. If you accept that we have, and I'm not asking you to do, but if you accept that we have the finest view on the adversary, we switch it, we turn it on its head, if you like. And there are many organizations that go out there and take the CVE table and do vulnerability scanning. But we take our picture, our proprietary intelligence of what the adversary is doing, and we apply that to an organization, its perimeter and its associated third parties and subsidiaries. And what allows us to do is bring back a heads-up display on risk. Critically within that, we've got two new categories of risk. One is the risk proximity, how close the adversary is in to the client, and the risk velocity, how much assets are they building, the speed at which they're building assets against the client. We turn that into a 3D visual map. The 3D visual literally maps from client to adversary. We can show the pulse of deployed assets within a client's environment. We can show the other assets in the wider sphere related to attack, and we can show how ready the adversary is to launch an attack, or even show where attacks are in flight. We can map an ecosystem around the client that links to their subsidiaries and third parties. Third parties is an area that clients are very, very interested in. So we can map where there are particular vulnerabilities within the third party. But we don't just show the picture of what's happening with the client. We will bring that back and we produce direct threat intelligence, subject specific to that client, to immunize the threat picture at that very point. We look to integrate with a client's environment, so that is orchestrated between 5 minutes and 2 hours maximum, so that while the client sleeps, they are still receiving the intelligence updates from BlackWired Third Watch.
Third Watch sounds very much like their own dedicated intelligence capability, looking over everything that's going on their behalf. So, yeah, really interesting analogy there, Iain, of how Third Watch is really getting involved. I hear the term direct threat intelligence. How does that differ from cyber threat intelligence, and what's the difference? Because I've been hearing this quite a lot at the moment, and I just need to understand what's the difference.
Well, we believe directed threat intelligence is, again, unique to ourselves. It gets back to that subject specific. Again, big vendors. Let's take the Middle East. They talk about the 5 major actor groups that are targeting enterprise and government within the Middle East. What we can step back from that, use a military term. So what? What we do is we look at the client specifically and we build the picture around that. So you could have 3 companies in the same street. They would have a different intelligence picture, never mind the same geography. So that direct threat intelligence, as opposed to cyber threat intelligence, which is general, this direct threat intelligence relates to company A, government body B, and exactly what we see. And we can attest, our intelligence, when we map it out, it is attested as bad. It is a 0 false positive view. We can show the client, going back to our 3D visual, we can show the client how this piece of intelligence that we want to deliver to the environment relates to, from them to the bad actor. Very, very different and very subject driven.
It is, Iain, and it's really interesting to see how unique that concept is from BlackWired. Now, obviously, this is we didn't touch on this ourselves prior to getting this podcast. How is that being adopted, Iain, by clients right now? What are they saying to you when they see the difference between what you're doing and what your competitors are doing. What's the general opinion of your capability against other vendors in the market, without naming any other vendors?
Yeah, so I think the clear difference is, you go through a business of early adoption and early majority and so on, and we're in that space now. Evidence is evidence. And it's irrefutable when you put it in front of a client. You do a proof of concept. You let them try and feel a snapshot of their environment and their third-party view. So the fact that it's evidence-driven means that we're gaining support. You've seen the support we've had from UK government in the Middle East as well. But the evidence-driven aspect is where the clients are coming on board. We're not giving it into conjecture. Here are the facts. Try it out, and that allows us to transact and move forward.
Good, Iain. So if you can't prove it, don't talk about it. And clearly, you guys are confident you can prove it. Hence the reason why you're talking about it. Excellent, Iain. Listen, before we round up, I'm really keen to understand what your own personal views are and predictions are for what we can expect in the whole cybersecurity community in 2025. I know we're getting into the first quarter, end of the first quarter, but what's your predictions for 2025?
Well, one of our partners in the Big Four said something in November last year. He said that 2025 is it will be the year of the machine, and I couldn't agree more. We talk about AI's role in threat defense. More specifically, it is the machine, and we have built a machine that we now have, had in operation and learning for 10 years. It's 2025 is machine against machine. The adversary is pointing the machine against our clients. And there is no longer the time for the human to eyeball little pieces of intelligence that they move through. We need to move to a machine-driven, orchestrated solution. By all means, you can look back on what has been passed into the infrastructure, but if you do not operate at the pace of the adversary, you will not thwart the attacks against business and government today.
Well, Iain, can't wait to see what the future holds when it comes to threat intelligence from the BlackWired perspective. So I'll be waiting on the sidelines eagerly to see what are the interesting things that you guys are combating. Iain, I wish I could add, we could have more time to speak, but unfortunately that's also a wrap for today. All that remains for me to say is Iain Johnston, BlackWired Managing Director. Thank you so much for joining me on Let's Talk Cyber.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Look forward to seeing you, Jai said.
Cheers, buddy.